So we have had a look at the starter motor components, we have had a look at magnetism and electromagnetism, so it's about time that we have a look at the circuit of a starting system and a variety of different starting systems and have a look to see how they work. Now this is a generic setup, so these are generic ones. They aren't specific to any particular vehicle, they're just an example of what you may see. So please don't hold me to them. Please don't tell me that one vehicle, Fords do it different to Holdens, who do it different to Scania. Everyone does them slightly different. I understand that, but what I want to do is just to have a look at a generic look to see how they do it. So here you can see the most common components that we're going to see on our starting system. We have a key so that we have some sort of control over it. You may have a push button to be able to start it, as well as you're having to use a key. We have a battery, we have a starter motor, and as you can see on both of those components, we have plenty of wires. Really, that's it. That's the components that we have in a starting system, a basic starting system. So that's where we're going to start off from. We're going to have a look at that basic starting system, and then we're going to start adding components in as we go. So here you can see, here's our basic starting system. We've already seen this graphic already. You can see here that we are starting off with the battery, and the positive of that battery supplies your ignition switch, which then goes to the solenoid ignition switch terminal. That there then energizes the solenoid to be able to operate this plunger. The plunger, when it moves to the right, will then, as well as engaging the pinion as it moves, it will also close the contacts. Now these contacts here are going to be coming once again from the positive of the battery terminal. It's going to flow, the current will flow through this nice large cable into this terminal or onto this terminal. The contact switch, when it closes, will allow the current to flow then out of the solenoid and into the starter motor. Now this may be a cable, or it may be what looks like a bit of flat metal. It's not bolted onto the side, it is insulated from the body, otherwise it would be a dead short. So once it goes inside, if it is a magnet type starter motor, it will go into the brushes, onto the commutator. Then we will start to see some movement as the armature creates a magnetic field around itself, and it will start to repel against the permanent magnets on the outside of the starter motor. The current then leaves on the opposite side via the earth, and it will go into the chassis of the vehicle, which then travels back over here into the chassis strap or the earth strap of the battery, back into the negative. The starter motor turns. When you let go of the key, the starter motor stops turning, and that's it. Hopefully, fingers crossed, at the end of that, your engine has started. So what we want to then look at next is, what does this look like on a diagram? So here we are. We have the symbol for a battery, the symbol for an ignition switch, and the symbol for the starter motor. You can see the dotted line around the starter motor. You can see that we actually have a motor, and then we have the solenoid. And because that dotted line is around both of those components, it says it's all one component. So that is really and truly the basic symbols that we are going to use on our system. And this is how it looks on a diagram. So you can see down the bottom here, we have our battery. It then puts power up to this junction here, where it then tees off. It tees off down to the starter motor and feeds power to the motor. Obviously that power can't run straight away or can't operate straight away because the solenoid has to be closed. So back over to here, we see that at this junction, we go off onto a fusible link. It goes up into the ignition switch, and there we wait for the driver to come along and turn it. When they turn it into the crank position, then we have a small amount of current that can then travel down along this cable into the solenoid, again into that ignition switch terminal. That little, it's usually a small one, either a spade or it could be like a little 5mm thread. It goes then into the solenoid, and you get there's those two coils, which is your holding coil and your pulling coil. You can see that the holding is earthed, whereas the pull-in, come down the other way, the pull-in then goes onto the positive. So once that switch is closed, once it's actually the solenoid's done the pulling part, the pull-in windings will stop. The power then is able to flow directly from the battery into the motor, and again, if it's a magnet type, straight into the commutator through the armature. If it is if it has field windings, it will go through the field windings first, then it will go through the armature or the commutator and the armature, and then it will go out of the chassis, down from the chassis over into the chassis strap or earth strap, back into the battery. And that is our basic key start system. Again, there are more complicated ways of doing it. There are different ways of doing this, but that is a basic circuit. So that's our basic circuit. We are going to have a look at adding some of these parts. This is the foundation. If you have an old vehicle, or if you have a vehicle that or an engine or a generator that is battery operated, you may find that that is the start system. That's all you've got with the start system. Some of the larger starter motors may have extra solenoids or extra relays to help or to prevent the large amounts of current going through the ignition switch, but as a basic circuit, that's how it's operating. So what we're going to have a look at next, we'll have a look at inhibitor or safety switches.